The other funny thing that Sean said is, listen, I don't want to fight a ranked opponent. And I think this stems from the Chael Sonnen video. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, a guy that was like the darling of the UFC matchmakers and the executives, Sean OMalley, things have gone a bit south with Sean Shelby. There's some back and forth, and Sean was supposed to fight in New York City. And he said, look, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to pay the taxes. My coaches can't come there. I'll add to it that the commission in New York City is like rolling the dice. Literally, you never know what's going to happen with the doctor stoppages and weird things there. So I can't blame Suga there. But it seems like the UFC and Sean are at odds for the first time in his young UFC career.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time before things like that start to play out in people's careers. And Sean is kind of a controversial type himself. He's not afraid to stand up for what he feels is right and ask for what he wants. And he's been pretty candid with us. He was like, I like Vegas. I like to drive up there. I live nearby, so I just kind of either rent a private plane or I drive myself up. I bring my family. We kind of do our own little thing. I don't need to go pay extra money to just fly across the country to fight in front of people that, who knows at that point in time if New York's going to be wide open. They might not allow him to have the fans, or Dana might scrap the whole event all in all because they can't do it the way Dana likes to do it. So who knows? But in such a young person's career, certainty is something that you always want. And I feel like there's just too many uncertainties in him trying to go compete in New York. And it makes sense for him to just, turn down the offer, even though everybody's like, oh, well, you got to fight at Madison Square Garden. That's like the Mecca. That's the place that everybody wants to go. And it's kind of cool to see one of the hot prospects in the sport be like, I don't really care about that. At the end of the day, it is a cool building, but it's a building. It's just an old building. They're going to take more money from me.
A lot of famous people fought here, and that's about it.
Yeah, but there's places in Vegas that are, just as cool in some people's minds. And if you can save a little bit of money, and the athletic commission, in my opinion, the results of the competition are what's most important. And if you would have had some of the fights that we've seen take place, TJ Dillashaw versus Corey Sandhagen being one of them that really sticks out. If that would have taken place at MSG, it for sure would have been stopped, and we wouldn't have got that great war that we had. I think that those are the types of things that open up people's eyes, like Sean OMalley. And he goes, I'm not going to risk it. If I get cut one time on the forehead and it causes me to lose a fight, that's really not good for me. And all that could be avoided if I just take the fight in a different state on a different card.
Yeah, and the taxes was something that I hadn't really considered. New York, it's state by state. Everybody who watches this channel knows that state by state taxes are very different, but there's some international people who might not know that. But the taxes you would pay in California and New York are much higher than they would be, say, here in Texas or in Nevada. And so when you're a guy who's making big paychecks, it actually does matter, and it does make a difference. But more than anything would be the judging. For me, the judging and the doctor stoppages, because Sean already has kind of a weird loss in his career against Marlon Vera. That was a legitimate stoppage. It was a legitimate TKO as far as I'm concerned. He would disagree with me. But, it suffice it to say that in New York, weird things can happen, and they do happen quite often.
Yeah.
The other funny thing that Sean said is, listen, I don't want to fight a ranked opponent. And I think this stems from the Chael Sonnen video. Chael put that video out, and it was a really funny video that if you guys haven't seen it, you should check it out. He took take that Sean should just say, hey, if you're fighting on the local circuit and you want to get your ass kicked, I'm your guy. If you're outside of the top 15, I'm your guy. And so Sean has kind of taken that and run with it a bit. And it does make sense. Listen, the biggest fights for the biggest paydays are title fights. If you want to be the highest paid athlete in this sport, you need to be a champion or at least fighting for a belt. Even you think of Jorge Masvidal, he's not a champion, but he is the BMF champion. He did just fight Kamaru Usman for a belt. He's always in title contention. You got Conor McGregor, no longer the champion, but at one point was a champ. Dustin Poirier was an interim champ. I could go on with the examples, but if you want the really big paydays, you do need to work your way up. But at only 27 years old, if Sean wants to have a few more years of fun, I could see him doing it while he's perfecting his skills. And I don't want to see him fight unranked opponents and local circuit guys forever, but I could see him working his way up slowly and being perfectly content with that and kind of taking an approach that no one's taken thus far.
Yeah, I think that's actually super smart. Chael always says that we have a bunch of fake tough guys in this industry, and it's so true. The fact of the matter is everybody wants the same thing, which is to fight the easiest guy for the most amount of money in front of the most people as far up the card as you can possibly do it.
Yeah.
Now, if that comes with a belt, then great, go for it. Nobody wants the absolute hardest fight every time because you'll quickly realize that there's too many variables in this sport. You're going to lose, and then you're going to be out of work sooner than later. So if you can just beat people up and continue to move up and up the ranks and up the card, more importantly, then that works out in your favor. And Sean listens to Chael, which is one thing that every fighter in the entire industry should do. But time and time again, when we watch him get to the microphone after they win a UFC fight, you realize that, they don't listen to Chael. They don't listen to any of the lessons that he gives you. And it almost becomes like a breath of fresh air when you see somebody like Sean kind of give the wink and the nudge and the nod towards Chael, because then you realize he's working this not from a fighter's exclusive standpoint, but from a promoter, from a businessman, from somebody who's just trying to entertain. And I think it's so funny that he's like not only like taking something from Chael, but literally verbatim taking what Chael says and show like just to give Chael like hey, I appreciate what you told me. I'm going to actually do exactly what you said.
I'm going to say verbatim what you said on your podcast, and then I'm going to give you credit for it. And listen, like a lot of people don't like Chael, and he was a heel and he was a bad guy. But as far as somebody who understands the business of fighting and understands marketability, I don't think there's anybody that's better than him in this sport. And so, it would behoove these young fighters, hey, if you want to dictate your career, if you want to have a say in who you're fighting next, then hop on that microphone and say something. You got 100,000, or as we saw with the Sean Strickland Uriah Hall numbers came out, there was 900,000 people watching that fight. Grab the microphone and you got a 1 million person audience. Like we would kill to have 1 million people. We appreciate the 1,000+ subscribers that we have, but if we had 1 million, that would be even that much cooler. So when you have that opportunity to say something in front of all of those people, seize it. And Sean, he's doing all the right things. He is a very good fighter. Yeah. At the end of the day, you have to have the skills. If you suck and you keep losing fights, even not that Conor sucks, but he's losing fights now. I said eventually he's going to have to win some fights. Otherwise, people are going to stop caring. So there is that aspect to it. And this Paige Van Zant's going through the same thing. So Sean has to continue to win. But the other side of this, he's got on lock. He's hanging out with the Nelk boys. He's hanging out with the Paul brothers. He's doing that sort of stuff. So I think it's interesting. I think it's a different approach. I could see him fighting some guys in the top, 10 to 15. There's talk about him fighting Frankie Edgar. Although Frankie's a very difficult fight, he is a legend. And if you want to be a legend yourself and you want to be one of the most remembered fighters, you do kind of have to beat the people of old and beat the people of new. So maybe if he thinks Frankie is an appropriate matchup for him at this time, that's a very tough fight. But to get a win like that under his belt would increase his star power. Yeah, and Sean has the ability to really call his shots, because in this sport, you always want to appear as strong as possible and as powerful as possible. And he could. One way to do that, which a lot of people don't do it, everybody can do it. Some just have a better chance at getting it, executing it, which is calling out the people that you want to fight. If you're really good at striking and you're good at jiu-jitsu, but you're not as great against wrestlers, maybe avoid the wrestlers. Don't call them out. When the time comes for you to say something on the microphone, call out somebody that you favor, at least in your mind you favor a matchup in. And if you do that, that heightens your chances of getting that person as opposed to somebody else. If Sean was like, I really think I do really well against Merab Dvalishvili, who's a monster grappler, call him out. But if he thinks that that's not a good matchup for him, then when you come time to talk to Joe Rogan on the microphone, make sure you don't say his name. Right. But when you say, I don't care, just give me somebody else, then you take all of your any sort of hold that you have on the game and surrender it, and then that leads the UFC to put you in there against whoever they deem necessary or the right person next.
I would like to see him and other fighters continue to create their own path and do exactly what they want to do, because this is a weird sport where you're actually allowed to pave your own way to the title, and you can make it as hard or as difficult or as hard as easy as you want it. There's no easy way to the UFC title, but you can make it more favorable for you. And one other thing I would really like to see Sean do is fight out this UFC contract. And before I don't see the UFC and Sean parting ways anytime soon, but I think Sean has the skills to do some pretty big stuff in combat sports during his prime years. Yeah. I would like to see maybe him test free agency for a one-fight deal where he's, sees what boxing will do. I would love to see Sean O'Malley box somebody, and he could probably pull big numbers that would help him later in his UFC career if he did that. Fight out his contract with the UFC, test free agency, see what happens, and then move forward in the UFC right after that. I just think it would be fun. It would be interesting to see him do something like that. And I think that the more he does these unprecedented things and hangs out with these big names and all of that, it'll just keep helping him grow as a celebrity and an entertainer.
Yeah, I think you're right. And testing free agency might be a cool thing. I would almost never recommend that to people unless they were of the caliber where they had multiple offers, and Sean will be that guy. And I think he should ultimately re-sign with the UFC afterwards. But if he were to do a boxing match in the interim when he was a free agent, that could be fun, and that could set a new precedent that people might say, hey, you know what, I might fight out my contract and then see what I can do. Maybe there's some cool, I guess, the UFC kind of lets people do these submission fights and stuff like that, even under contract. But, a boxing match or something of that nature if you're a good striker. So I think the sky's the limit for Sean. And when you're in a division where TJ Dillashaw's back, Dominic Cruz is coming back, Jose Aldo just got a big win, Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling have to handle their business, Corey Sandhagen's hanging around. Yeah. It's going to be a year and a half, 2 years before all of that gets settled. So have some fun with some fights in the meantime. Yeah. Continue to build your brand, continue to build your star, and I think Sugar has got this one right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see it happen.
For sure. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Let us know if you agree in the comments. What do you think about Suga's comments about, 1, fighting in New York, and 2, not wanting to fight anybody ranked or currently in the UFC for the next few fights? Drop us a line. We always love chatting with you guys there. And a like and subscribe is always appreciated if you've enjoyed our content. And if you listen to audio podcasts, check us out there as well, the Barnhill Brothers Podcast. Until the next one, guys, have a great day.
Peace.